Oh hey, didn't see you there. You just caught me playing some good old Sonic the Hedgehog. Where's the fishing? One of the most important factors of a game is the character you play as. This can often greatly affect how the game plays and what it's all about, but some games just have trouble making decisions. Sonic is a series that is very familiar with the concept of playing as multiple characters, so I thought it would be fun to go back and look through them all. First, it is important to establish what counts as another playable character. It is basically any character besides Sonic that is playable in the game. I also won't be talking about spin-offs in this video, so no games like the Storybook series or Boom. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into it. So starting off with the classic games, we have Sonic 1, which did not feature any other characters. But in Sonic 2, we got the addition of Tails. While he plays mostly the same as Sonic, he also has the ability to fly, which can make certain sections a little bit easier than they were before. While it was a really cool addition at the time, it wasn't really a huge one. But then, in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, we had the return of Tails along with a new character, Knuckles. This is a much cooler addition, as Knuckles has a bunch of new abilities that Sonic doesn't have, like gliding and climbing on walls. He also had his own version of levels in that game, making playing as him more worthwhile, as it offered plenty of changes from Sonic's story. Also, when putting Sonic 2 in the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge, or playing one of the modern ports of the game, you can play as Knuckles, which is a pretty cool bonus. Also, in the Origins port of Sonic 1, you can now play as Tails and Knuckles, which is a fun new way to spice things up a bit. Also, in Sonic Origins, you can play as Tails in Sonic CD. Not Knuckles though. That's asking a little too much of them. Sonic Adventure is where the gameplay styles really start to differ from each other. Starting with Tails, he is a lot like he is in the classics, where he plays very similar to Sonic, but can fly. In this game though, he is slowed down to not be able to go as fast as Sonic, but the fun part about his stages is that you're usually racing something to get to the goal. And since Tails is slower, you have to fly around and find shortcuts to beat the level faster. I think that this is such a cool way to set up his levels. It still encourages that classic Sonic speed, but does it in a way that feels different from the main Sonic levels while still being fun. Next up we have Knuckles. Knuckles stages are set up very different from Sonic and Tails in that there is no longer a specific goal that you have to make it to. Instead, you are let loose in an open area and are tasked with finding 3 items hidden throughout. This style of stage fits Knuckles' moveset very well, as his climbing and gliding abilities make it easier to traverse the area and look for hidden treasures. This is a really fun mode, and I think it does a good job of changing up the levels from being just quick A to B levels and does something different that works. After Knuckles, we have Amy, whose only real ability she has is her hammer, which you can attack with as well as use to get a higher jump than usual. She is also much slower than Sonic, so her stages are a bit slower paced. But in these stages, there is an Eggman robot that is constantly chasing you down, meaning that you can't stop and slow down, which helps keep up the pace a little bit. While these stages are fine and the aspect of being chased is a cool idea, overall they just aren't really that fun. Amy is so slow compared to most characters in the game, and overall just feels like a worse Sonic. While her hammer is fine, there isn't enough there that would make you want to play her levels over characters like Knuckles or Tails, which I think the developers knew as she only has 3 levels in the game. Okay, so that's 3 down, and next up we have— holy crap! That's right baby, next up we have Big the Cat, who for a very long time had a terrible reputation, and it all came from this game right here. Big the Cat's levels are basically just fishing minigames. That's it. While I definitely agree that this is the worst part of the game, I mean it's not that bad. The game doesn't do the greatest job at explaining how the fishing works, which I think is what caused a lot of frustration for people, but once you learn the controls it really isn't that bad in all honesty. While like I said, it's still not good, I think it definitely got blown out of proportion and isn't nearly as bad as some would make it out to be. Still the worst part of the game though. Next up we have E102 Gamma, and I'm not going to say that name every time, so we're just going to call him Gamma. So Gamma's main gameplay mechanic is targeting enemies and shooting them. You're on a timer during the level, and if you want to increase your time, you want to target as many enemies as possible, and the more you target, the more time you'll get added to your timer. I think that this gameplay mode is definitely fun, but is also one of the farthest from the normal Sonic gameplay, excluding Big, he's just doing his own thing. It feels really good to target a whole bunch of enemies and unload all of the missiles on them, but other than that, there isn't really much to say here. I definitely don't hate Gamma's gameplay, but it's nowhere near my favorite in this game. Sonic Adventure 2 takes some of the things that worked in Adventure and trims down the fat so we don't have things like the Amy and Big stories that just feel like padding to the game. Instead, we have 3 different gameplay styles and 5 non-Sonic playable characters split into the hero and dark storylines. The first character we have is Shadow, who was first introduced in this game. He plays almost identically to Sonic, which is fine by me because the Sonic levels in this game feel great and I won't complain that we get more through Shadow. So next up we have Knuckles and Rouge, who play a lot like how Knuckles did in Sonic Adventure. In general, they feel a lot smoother and better to control than Knuckles did in Adventure, so that is a nice improvement. But the problems come with the fact that these levels feel much larger and more confusing to navigate. This can make the levels take a very long time, and you can get pretty tired of them quickly. Also, a very strange change in this game is what they did to the radar. In Adventure, if you were near any of the emeralds, the radar would begin beeping, but in this game it wants you to go in a specific order, so it will only detect one emerald at a time. So even if you are close to the next one, it won't tell you, so you have to painstakingly go for one at a time. Even if you are right next to another one, if it's not the next one in line, you'll have to travel to wherever the next one is, then struggle to find the last one, only to realize that it was right next to the first one. While I do enjoy the concept of the treasure hunt, as it really fits Knuckles' gameplay style, these levels just become way too confusing and I usually end up flying around aimlessly for very long periods of time. Last up for this game, we have Tails and Eggman. This is a return of the gameplay style that was introduced in Gamma's story in the first adventure, and for the most part stays largely unchanged. The main differences are that you move a little slower, as well as there no longer being a time limit. Since we now have the ranking system at the end of each level, they removed the time limit so that now instead of trying to increase your time, you're instead trying to get a better score for a higher rank. I personally prefer this because it adds a little more thought and challenge into the levels if you want to go for the A ranks. The levels also feel like they are more tailor-made for this gameplay style instead of just throwing them into a section of a Sonic level like in Adventure with Gamma's campaign. While this still isn't my favorite gameplay style, I think it holds up better than the Knuckles and Rouge levels in this game. Though I do miss the Tails gameplay from the original Adventure. I thought that one was just really fun. But, obviously, the best playable character here is Shadow, because he's pretty much just Sonic. Sonic Heroes takes the concept of having multiple playable characters and takes it into a completely new direction. Instead of choosing a specific character to play as and playing their level style, we now have one unifying playstyle that all of the characters fall under. This allows for this game to have a ton of playable characters besides Sonic. We have characters that we haven't seen in a while, like the Chaotix group. We have Shadow and Rouge returning with a new character, Omega, and we even get characters like Big the So the way this game works is that we have 4 different teams that all play basically identical to each other. Each team has a speed character, a flying character, and a power character. The speed character allows you to move faster and do maneuvers like wall jumps and tornado attacks. The flying character allows you to fly for a short amount of time and perform attacks called the Thunder Shoot. And finally, we have the power characters, which allow you to perform melee attacks, glide, and use your friends as weapons to shoot enemies. Since all teams share the same level and gameplay style, each team basically represents a different difficulty for the game, with Team Sonic being normal, Team Rose being easy, Team Dark being hard, and Team Chaotix offering special challenges different from the normal A to B structure of the other team playthroughs. While the first 3 teams are very enjoyable as they are all very similar to each other, Team Chaotix can be a little frustrating, especially if it is your first time. So overall, I think Heroes did a really good job of handling multiple characters. The idea of playing as 3 at once instead of just choosing one and sticking with them is a really cool idea. It also allows the stages to have more going on and have the player put more thought into them, as there are usually many moments where you have to quickly switch from one character to another to tackle the different obstacles. Before we get into 06, I think it is important to point out that I have not played the original 06. I actually do have a copy of the game, but I bought it thinking that it would be playable on my Xbox One. I was wrong, but eventually if I get my hands on a 360, I do want to play this game. But for now, I'll be using Project 06 as a reference, which if you don't know is a fan-made remake of the original game with tons of bug fixes and improvements from the original, making the game a much better experience overall. So since I haven't played the real game, I'm going to keep this short and say that I enjoy the idea of switching to other characters during stages, as it allows for more variety, while also cutting back on the amount of time you are not playing as Sonic or whichever main character you choose to play as. The 2 other main characters also play differently from Sonic, with Shadow being more combat focused, which I think is a good way to make Shadow's gameplay different from Sonic, unlike how it is in most other games he is in. And Silver is just sort of doing his own thing. But from what I have heard, Shadow's gameplay can feel very slow and annoying in the original, which is something the Project 06 remake has fixed and has made him genuinely fun to play as. Silver also has a pretty rough reputation, and while his story hasn't been released yet for Project 06, in the small sections that he is playable, he still feels pretty rough. Hopefully one day I can give 06 some more attention when I can actually play the game, but for now I totally recommend checking out Project 06, whether you have played the original or not. I've had a great time with it, and I'll link the creator's channel in the description where you can find the download links. So with Sonic Unleashed, you technically play as Sonic the whole game, but I'm just going to count the Werehog as its own thing because it plays so differently. Back when the game released, it felt like everyone was talking about how stupid the Werehog is and how terrible the stages are. And there are some who still hold this view, but in all honesty the Werehog is actually pretty fun. While it is very different from the usual Sonic gameplay, it's not like that isn't in this game. We still have plenty of regular Sonic with some of the best stages in the entire series. I always feel like I hear people complaining that the Werehog is just button mashing and nothing else, but if that's the way you feel, you're just not playing it right. There are tons of combos and moves you can pull off in this game, but you have to actually try. And it's not like the combat is the only thing you do in these levels. There are tons of platforming sections in these levels, and they are definitely my favorite part. While I love the boost levels in the game, it's nice to occasionally do some slower platforming, and with the addition of being able to grab onto ledges and poles with his arms, makes the platforming really fun and different from a lot of other games. So yeah, I think the Werehog is actually pretty fun, and was overhated just because people weren't willing to try something new, and took any deviation from normal Sonic gameplay as some sort of call to war. Okay, so just like last time, in this game you only play as Sonic. But just like the Werehog, I'm counting Classic Sonic as their own separate character since they are so different from the main gameplay. Classic Sonic in this game definitely feels much different from the Genesis games, which to some may have been a negative, but in my opinion they make up for this by designing the stages with this feel in mind. I also really enjoy how this game does cool stuff with the camera that couldn't have been done on the Genesis. It really makes these levels feel like a true modernization of classic Sonic gameplay, but overall I don't have much to say. It's a fun gameplay style and I like coming back to it every once in a while. For the most part, Sonic Mania is a lot like 3 and Knuckles with extra characters. We have Tails who can fly, and Knuckles who can glide and climb, and still has his own version of certain levels in this game, which is a nice return. But with the Plus DLC, we get 2 new characters with Mighty and Ray. Mighty has a ground pound attack, and Ray plays a lot like the Cape power-up in Super Mario World. Overall, not much to these characters, but they are still great additions. Last up, we have Sonic Forces. I actually did a full video on this game about a month ago, so if you want to see my full thoughts, then go check that out. This time we have 2 other playable characters, with the return of Classic Sonic, along with the new custom avatar character. Starting with Classic Sonic, it feels very similar to how he did in Generations, except a whole lot worse. A lot of the momentum feels very strange, and nothing really feels good to control. The levels are also a lot less interesting, and don't do anything to make this Classic Sonic stand out from Genesis games or Mania. The avatar, in my opinion, is better, but not by much. They feel a lot like modern Sonic, except you can't boost, and your homing attack is much slower. You do get the Wispins, which have special abilities and attacks, but I never really found them all that interesting. All of this just gives me the feeling that I would rather just be playing as Sonic, which makes it really hard to enjoy these stages. Well, that was kind of fun, I guess. I think if anything, making this video has shown me that while I usually prefer just playing as Sonic, there can be value in some of these other game modes. These extra characters can offer you other experiences that you maybe didn't even know you wanted. Like for me, I didn't expect to enjoy the Werehog nearly as much as I do, but I tried it and found that it was one of my favorite game modes in this video. Even though it seems like Sonic Team is done giving us these other playable characters, and instead they are just giving us pure Sonic gameplay with Frontiers, we still see this idea of trying to mix things up live on with the new additions like the open zone, or the new combat system, or the fishing minigame with Big the